Africa, Africa, we are the children of Africa. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. Africa, Africa, we are the children of Africa.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our community showcase here, and once again we are joined by the Regional Director of the Africa Muslim Agency, Hafiz Hassan Chunara, and inshallah today we're going to be speaking about something that's almost on our doorsteps during the blessed days of Dhul Hijjah, and that is the meritorious action of carrying out something that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam carried out, and that is the act of Qurbani. So we're going to be speaking about Qurbani with the Africa Muslim Agency. We say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, Hafiz Hassan, and Jazakallah once again for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We know well after the blessed month of Ramadan, always just a few more weeks to go, then it's a very important aspect of our religion comes into play once again when it comes to the days of Dhul Hijjah, and then also the act of Qurbani. We know Africa Muslim Agency has been undertaking this Qurbani project not only locally but also abroad for many a year now. Briefly, a brief overview of the Qurbani project that Africa Muslim Agency undertakes.
As you correctly mentioned, Hafiz Zahid, Ramadan passed and then a few weeks and a month and then we get into the spirit of Qurbani. But for the organization like Africa Muslim Agency, it starts almost immediately after Ramadan. There is no time to obviously you do your feedback for Ramadan, you do your assessments, you look at improving. For the next Ramadan, you look at the areas you benefited. However, Qurbani starts almost immediately. Why do I say almost immediately? Already the teams on the ground, whether they be Mozambique, Malawi, and various parts of Africa, already start sourcing animals. Now we'll talk about educating, empowering, inspiring later in the show. But we already start sourcing animals from different villages in Africa, identifying the local masajid. Yes, we did the Ramadan project in this village in Africa. Is there a need for a Qurbani program there? So we start really looking at the various areas, the hotspots you want to call it, where the Qurbanis will start taking place. We start getting our prices from the various farmers around South Africa and start seeing the kind of outlay. When I say outlay, the kind of targets that we set as an organization to do more than last year. We always try to benefit more people than it was with each passing year. So yes, for us as an organization, it starts almost immediately after Ramadan. And alhamdulillah, the months and days of Hajj towards Eid al-Adha have arrived. We are just days or weeks away from the blessed month of Dhul Hijjah. And although many people were perhaps waiting for the end of the month or when they get paid to sponsor their Qurbani, like I said, we are already in the process of identified areas. We have already identified our areas, and we have already set targets of so many villages, so much Qurbani per village, whether it be in Africa. In South Africa, we've already identified the network of organizations we're going to be working with. And this year, we obviously, like Ramadan, we are now working in Lebanon in the camps, Syrian Palestinian camps.
Before we go on to, like you say, educating and empowering, let's talk more about the targets. Now, when you mention targets to any viewer who's hearing about Qurbani with AMA for the first time, what specific or which specific countries does AMA target then? We know South Africa, we know that for a fact, but across around us?
Well, we have Africa Muslim Agency's offices in 29 countries in Africa. And every country where we are based, there is Hudiyah Qurbani taking place during the time of Hudiyah Qurbani. So at these countries, we have masajid that are established. But let's just focus on Malawi and Mozambique, which where South Africa office is quite active, alhamdulillah. We've established a number of masajid in these areas, Islamic centers. We've established water wells, schools, clinics, boreholes. And these villages, we're kind of indebted to them to grow that village. Yes, we don't just build a center or Islamic center or a masjid or a school or water well, whatever, and leave. We become part of that community in terms of developing that community. Ramadan time, we had a fully fledged Ramadan project program, Hifz classes, Hifz competitions, Dawah programs. Udhiyah time, similarly, we have a huge program that starts long before the days of Hajj. Education about Hajj, and then obviously going thereafter beyond Hajj and looking at other projects. So already Malawi, we've identified our areas, and this year in Lebanon, in the camps, the listeners may be aware right now that AMA is quite active in the Syrian and Palestinian camps in Lebanon. We've mentioned a number of times on this platform the challenges, and we mentioned today as well some of the challenges that they are facing. And this year it's a huge focus for us in those camps to ensure that the people in those camps not only receive meat, but also be part of a process long before the days of Hajj, inshallah.
I know then also the question arises, Hafiz Hassan, sometimes people would say, no, why don't we just spend the money here at home? You, a person that has been on the ground, we're talking about Lebanon a bit later, but Malawi, Mozambique, what is the greatest need, especially when it comes to Udhiyah time or a person having meat to eat there?
You know, like you said, we travel a lot in Africa, and when you go there, when you interact with the locals, you see that meat for them is a luxury. Rice is also a luxury. I mean, they eat from what they grow, so they eat the mandioca or the sweet potato or the bananas, whatever they grow, and that's how they live. So they only see meat perhaps twice a year, Ramadan time and Udhiyah time. Some of the villages, I remember just recently we went to Malawi, and some of them say they don't see meat for maybe a few years. If an organization does not come there and assist them or purchase livestock or goat and then slaughter it on the day of Eid with them, they would not be having that meat for for the day of Eid. Remember, when you go to villages in Africa, you may find goats walking around villages, and people think, okay, but they've got goats. I mean, like what's the story? But it doesn't belong to them. It belongs to perhaps a farmer or some one or two individuals within a village that own that and perhaps use it as their nourishment in terms of drinking the milk from the goats, or So it doesn't belong to the community as such. It belongs to one or two individuals, and we'll talk about perhaps in the next segment about empowering and how we procure these animals and then involve the community to ensure that they not just receive meat, but they are part of a process long before the day of Eid.
Talking about then education before we go for the break, what does AMA hope to achieve when it comes to the aspect of Qurbani or Udhiyah? How do we go about educating the masses out there?
I mean, you and I, perhaps, you grow, I mean, we're both from the south of Johannesburg. Perhaps each day you have your ritual and your routine. Perhaps when you are a young boy, like many of us, I can remember days when, waking up, it's Fajr, it's Eid Salah, it's the cemetery, you go to perhaps your grandmother's home, you break your fast, you go home, you have a bit of a breakfast, or you rush into the farm, and then you've got your, the family members have all chosen their livestock, and then you start slaughtering, and then the process. Every family has their routine. In Africa, what's their routine? We think about in Africa, we don't want to create the concept that come the day of Eid, it's a day where we receive packets of meat from an organization. We understand that the essence, the Sunnah of Ibrahim, our parents have taught us why we do this, why we slaughter the animal, what was the whole process, the days of Hajj, the takbir we're reciting. We understand that it's beyond just the animal and just receiving the meat and having a cooked leg roast or on the day of Eid or come the next Eid. It's about an entire process of the Sunnah of Ibrahim and he was ordered to and commanded to sacrifice Ismail . And so also in Africa, it's not about just giving them packets of meat. We want to get away from this when we go to Africa, oh no, it's a day of Eid, so we stand in queues to get a packet of meat and we got our meat and we go home. Yes, that's the benefit, that they get food, that they get meat because they don't see that throughout the year. But the learning, education part of a process of why. The days of Hajj, beyond your village, somewhere in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, people, 2 or 3 million people, are perhaps in Arafah or Muzdalifah or Mina. And why are they there? What are they doing? What's their action symbolizing? What are they replicating that happened perhaps over 1400 years ago? All that is an education process that we as an organization start long before the day of Eid, immediately after Ramadan, and we educate people on why, that the Qurbani process and what it's all about.
Inshallah. We'll talk more about empowering after the break, but on your educational aspect, you forgot when giving us the history of what you used to do in those days. You got chased by the animal as well. That I know about it, so don't keep that a secret. We go for a short break, inshallah. When we come back, we talk about empowering with the AMA when it comes to Qurbani 1440.
Africa, Africa, we are the children of Africa. Africa, Africa, we are the children of Africa.
Welcome back to our community showcase, once again joined by the Regional Director of the Africa Muslim Agency, talking about Qurbani 1440 with the Africa Muslim Agency. Before the break, Hafiz Hassan, we spoke about the target areas that AMA operates in, and also why AMA undertakes the process of how it goes about doing Qurbani, educating the people. The next point you did make mention was about empowering the communities that AMA takes these Qurbani projects to. How does that work?
But if you focus in Africa, I mean, let's just bring it home closely. I mean, we were talking about, you know, your childhood experience, my childhood experience.
No,
and
only yours. I can quite outrun the animals, fine.
So we're talking about, you know, your experience, you know, long before the day of Eid, you go to a farm, you select the animal, you feed the animal, perhaps, you know, the day of Eid, you know, all the kids around and they, you know, they're looking forward to it. And so it's a whole pre-preparation before the day of Eid. In Africa as well, you know, how do we empower the local community? Like we mentioned in the first segment, when you go to some of the villages in Africa, you see the goats, they're running around, and you think, okay, but there's goats here. I mean, but like I said, it belongs to perhaps one individual or 2 or 3 people. So immediately after Ramadan, our teams in the villages in Africa go around to different villages. So we identify perhaps a village in Africa that needs perhaps on that day of Eid needs 300 cattle or 300 goats to be slaughtered. It's the demand of that village, 300. But we know, okay, there's one person that owns 15 that you could slaughter. So we go to that person and we purchase livestock from him. So we make a price with him. Now, every village is a different price. But perhaps with that person we make a price. So we purchase 15 from him. But then so he's from that village. So what are we doing? We're empowering the economy of that village. You know, we select 2 or 3 people within that village and we say, okay, 1, 2, 3 people, we're purchasing your livestock. Let's look at the size and look at all the requirements, and we purchase that amount. But we're still short. We still need another 250. Now, okay, by purchasing from them, you've empowered them. You've grown them. But now you leave the animals in the village. You don't take it away. You leave it there. And you entrust the local community to look after those livestock, the animals. But what about the balance of 250 livestock you still need? We then truck in live animals from different villages that we purchase around, that we go around village purchasing from the local. So empowering them. We don't go to one massive farm, you know, perhaps in the south of Malawi or any part of the town and say, okay, give us 1,000. No, we go to the villages and purchase from them. And then we entrust them to look after the very same animals we purchase from them, empowering them, explaining to them the process. And those villages that still are short of livestock, we then truck in those live animals. Now we truck in, already those villages have the livestock with them. They put them in the cars, they give them the feed. Now, it's obviously, you know, it's a whole education process. But during this time, some of those livestock will get sick, some will run away. You know, it happens. And so, obviously, it costs the organization funds to ensure that this process continues. We can't come the day of Eid and say, okay, not 15 died or 10 ran away, we can't do it. No, we make sure that the numbers are there. So we use our you know, we get trucks to truck in the live animals, and we show each village is set up long before the day of Eid with the required animals. And that's the empowerment process. Empowering, purchasing from them, educating them of why, and entrusting the local community to look after these animals come the day of Eid. Also, come the day of Eid, we present, the AMA team, present in every village, you know, doing the slaughtering process, but with the community, involving them, ensuring that they experience, obviously, the process, but they also understand the essence and the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Why we're doing this. You know, it's not just we're cutting livestock today, we're getting meat and we go home happy. No, it's about the whole process. What's happening in Mina, Arafah, Muzdalifah, why people are there. And perhaps some of them, you know, have a dream or goal to go there as well. You know, we've heard some imams from rural villages in Africa, alhamdulillah, through the generosity of donors who's built masjid in Africa, who said, we want to sponsor the imam that's staying there. And this imam that never went out of the village ever. And their first trip ever out of the village was to the blessed lands for Hajj. So they too have the aspirations and goals. And through this education process, you never know what's possible.
This whole process that AMA has been undertaking, I suppose, for years, that you have got it fine-tuned and running very smoothly, it is a logistical nightmare.
Absolutely. Like I said, you know, trucking these live animals. Just think about a simple thing is the roads. You know, I've come from Malawi, Mozambique, just before Ramadan we were there, and to look at the roads just to get to those villages. We know about the recent rains in that part of the world. And it's not tarred roads. Yes, you take it from village to village. Now you got to work out, you know, your numbers. Okay, we need to get to that village, and we need, like, okay, now there's another 30 that needs to go there in this village. So now you got to work out your logistics, you know, how to get those animals to this village before a certain time. And then you need to, the challenge is the roads. One of the biggest challenges. You're driving. I mean, we've seen footage of our trucks, especially in Ramadan time, where they break down. And then you need to get other lorries in, other trucks in, to offload that truck into another truck, and then carry on, because the project must still continue. The donors' niyyah must still be fulfilled.
Then, all right, now we're moving on to then Lebanon. You talked about Malawi, Mozambique, you're tracking the animals. Now, what happens in a case like Lebanon, for example, now, if you need maybe 300, 400, 500 sheep or cattle, whatever, what's the logistics in place now for Lebanon then?
Again, they, our partners on the ground, are already sourcing the animals from perhaps the local farmers within closer to the camps. And then we'll get those animals to the camps before the day of Eid. Again, an education process, because we know in the camps in Lebanon, we sent many delegations, female and male delegations, and each one will tell you when they interact with a child, perhaps 6, 7 years old, whose only life he knows or she knows is a campsite. They don't know Sharia. They know they're from Sharia in terms of their parents, and they know perhaps their mother or father has passed on while living in Sharia. But now the only life they know is the campsite. Now you don't want to just be bringing meat again. You want them to experience, so you bring the animals, the livestock to them. Perhaps the kids will interact, will play with the sheep, and on the day of Eid, they'll be part of the process. They enjoy the process. It becomes a festivity, a happy occasion. We were just mentioning the other day, apart from just providing meat, apart from observing the Sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the mood in the camp, when somebody sponsors Qurbani through the African Muslim Agency, perhaps we'll cover this in the last segment, you're also contributing to the natural upliftment of an individual in their soul.
Alhamdulillah. We'll talk more about that inshallah after the break. Here you're watching the Community Showcase with Africa Muslim Agency. We're talking about Qurbani 1440. Keep watching.
Africa, Africa, we are the children of Africa. Africa, Africa, we are the children of Africa.
Welcome back to our last segment of this Community Showcase with the African Muslim Agency. In studio once again, Regional Director Hafiz Hassan Chunara, talking about Qurbani with the African Muslim Agency. Before the break, we made mention of uplifting those people there in Lebanon when they undertake this Sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Very briefly, Hafiz Hassan, you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, I would say it's part of the inspiring aspect of the project, educating, empowering, inspiring. When you contribute towards the African Muslims Agency in terms of sponsoring Qurbani, yes, the benefit is they're getting meat. Yes, they're part of a process in learning the Sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam, those who don't know. They experience that whole process of looking after an animal, feeding it, connecting with the animal, slaughtering the animal, skinning it, cutting it, cleaning it. Now remember, in the camps in Lebanon, there are no fridges. There's no place where you can store them. So they consume that meat on the day. It then gets sliced, cut, distributed amongst the community, amongst the camp, and then people can consume it. They can't keep it for another day, 1 week, 2 weeks. They use it. But when you sponsor a Qurbani or here in the camp in Lebanon for the certain Palestinians, you add to the general mood, the uplifting mood of the camp. What do I mean? We know the current situation in the camps in Lebanon. It's not good. It's not ideal. Right now, as we speak, the African Muslim Agency is busy with a project called Dignity Tent, building tents for families in the camps, because we know since Ramadan or since the Eid day, a number of semi-permanent or permanent tent structures have been demolished for whatever reason. But we find hundreds of civilian families now out in the cold. Literally, one day you've been living in this tent for 5, 6 years, and the next day you have nothing over your head. So, as an immediate and urgent response, already our teams have already started and already building, and have already benefited many families with the hashtag Dignity Tent. But so you can understand the mood. Since Ramadan, alhamdulillah, through your generosity of donors, they had a good Ramadan. They had iftar, suhoor. Through your generosity, you sponsored the hot meals, the food baskets. But since then, they're out in the cold, no shelter. So now they're getting shelter through your generosity again. But the mood in the camp is sort of down. Now another Eid day coming. Last Eid, they had a good Eid, alhamdulillah. This Eid, they worried. Like how they were worried about Eid and people came and assisted. This Eid, they also worried. So again, when you sponsor Qurbani, you give the benefit of meat and the process and the Sunnah of Ibrahim, but also you aid to the upliftment of a child. They smile, they play, they're happy. And that alone is a reward. The entire campsite is just uplifted. Because why? There are people who thought about him, that brought the immediate benefit of meat by sponsoring, but you just added to the whole ambience surrounded it. Everybody's happy, jovial, smiling, and that alone just gives positive energy to the entire environment.
Especially during the days of Hajj, we know every action that a person undertakes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again increases the reward to that action. Imagine, like you said, bringing a smile to the next Muslim brother or sister is what a great reward when it comes to uplifting the human being next to you. Very briefly, Hafiz Hassan, talking then about pricing. We're short of time here now. When it comes to local Qurbanis, because every time you would find people always talking about let's do local, let's do local. So let's enlighten our viewers firstly about the local projects and then the pricing for Malawi, Mozambique and Lebanon.
Across South Africa, we network with over 200 community-based organizations that are actively working on the ground, who send their requests, where we allocate live sheep to them. Some of them would come to our centers in different points around South Africa and do the slaughtering process there and then take the carcasses back to their towns. Other places we'll accompany those organizations to their place and then do the slaughtering there. So we oversee the project and ensure that the donors' need has been fulfilled. The pricing for a share in South Africa is 2,150 Rand per share. Anywhere in South Africa. In Africa, it's 1,250 Rand per share. And in the camps in Lebanon, for the Syrian Palestinians, it's 4,150 Rands per share, which benefits, and one share benefits 10 families. And I want to focus quickly before we go to the next question. Hafiz, 1250 in Africa. People ask, how come 1250? I mean, isn't it like a bit much? And having explained the process of going around village to village, purchasing from the local people, we're not buying from one central farm. We're not slaughtering at one central point. We are slaughtering at every village that we are working in. We're ensuring that people be part of the process, the education drive. All that takes energy, time, cost. You know, trucking in live animals from different villages, 5-6 hours on a gravel terrain to make sure that that village has live animals long before the day of Eid, so people be part of the entire process. Costs a lot of money and cost time, cost personnel, ensuring that our teams, AMA teams, are on the ground the day of Eid to ensure that the niyyah has been fulfilled also is very costly. And that's why 1250. It's an entire education process. It's an empowerment process. It's not just people receiving meat on the day of Eid.
But then the question also can be asked about the Lebanon share, 4,000 and something. Why is that cost then?
Because the cost of animals in that part of the world is quite expensive. And also in the camps, you're looking at the numbers. If I remember Al Yasmin camp, 350 Syrian families living in that camp. You look at the numbers that we are targeting. The cost of animal alone is quite expensive, but you look at the benefit, one share benefiting 10 families. So if you take a camp of 350 families, you can do the sums and work out, okay, the 415 really goes a long way in terms of benefiting the amount of people in the camp. So yeah, it is a costly to slaughter, and the demand for animals there is huge. And that's why the price is what it is.
Then the next question, Hafiz Hassan, is why AMA?
There are many organizations in South Africa that are doing Udhiyah and Qurbani in South Africa and other parts of the world, and all doing sterling work. And we urge the community, I mean, we always say at AMA, one of the advices that we give to our donors before entrusting us with your sponsor Qurbani, ensure that you're doing one at home. So your children here at home experience what's the use of sponsoring villages in Africa and they get to know the process of and the Sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam, but our own households at home are not really, we gave it out and there's nothing at home. So we always say try and do one within your own household, so your kids or parents or grandparents or family, whatever, family members get to experience that Sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Like I said, there are many organizations working in South Africa, and assist all of them because they're all doing sterling work. They're all no one organization can see to the needs of the entire country or the continent or other parts of the world. That's why we need these organizations to ensure that more and more people benefit. And we urge you to sponsor, to contribute towards AMA because it's an empowerment process, it's an educating process, it's an inspiring process. It's not just the meat that you are bringing to people, but the entire, you're uplifting communities. We are going to the most rural villages in Africa, having just been to Malawi and Mozambique prior to Ramadan. Having experienced the 4x4 going off the road 1:30 in the morning with no cell phone signal, no one to help you, because the village is so far in, through difficult terrain, but people are in need and there's nobody assisting them. And we want to benefit those people.
Talking then about how the donors can benefit those people, how do they get in contact with the Africa Muslim Agency?
Through our website, Africa Muslims Agency, details should be on the screen. Details of the campaign are also on the website, and the contact numbers of all the officers and consultants are also on the website. You may also donate via the website africamuslimsagency.co.za. Be sure to give us your mobile number so we could send you an SMS to confirm that your Udhiyah has been carried out, so you could do the necessary, inshallah.
Hafiz Hassan Chunara, Regional Director of the African Muslim Agency, Jazakallah once again for joining us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and take the African Muslim Agency from strength to strength at all times, inshallah. Once again, our community showcase today with Hafiz Hassan Chunara, Regional Director of Africa Muslim Agency, talking about Qurbani 1440. From myself and the rest of the team, fi amanillah, take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Africa, Africa, we are the children of Africa. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. From Mauritania to Ethiopia, from Tunisia to Somalia.